Okay, here we are on the campus of the Catholic University of America. We're in the Brookland neighborhood of Washington, D.C. So if you were to go this way about 5 minutes, you would get to a nice metro station. So you can see we're in a nice urban area. It's a very kind of garden, beautiful feel for Washington, D.C. But if we were here about 200 years ago, you would see a very, very different environment. In this area, which was known as Washington County up until about the 1870s or 1880s, it was mostly rural. And so the first people we know of to have built a home here were Samuel Harrison Smith and Margaret Bayard Smith. They were a couple who moved here with their family from Philadelphia. And so the area we are at right here is exactly where their home was located. There's a structure that we use here as our field laboratory, which is right on the location where that house was located. But when we're thinking about life in the 19th century, it was also a plantation. Many of the people who worked here under the Smiths were enslaved, but often were enslaved by other people. They were hired out from their enslavers to work here. As time went on and the land passed hands, it went to another family, the Middletons, who were also engaged in Washington, D.C. society. Rasmus Middleton was a clerk who also worked downtown. And so he entrusted the day-to-day management of this property, which was at that time a working plantation, to Gusty Shaw and the Shaw family of enslaved laborers. Gusty Shaw was a really talented farmer and gardener. He marketed everything that was grown here. And so if you can imagine the area here, which is a nice grassy lawn today, would have been covered in gardens and fruit trees. And all of this was what Gusty Shaw oversaw. Right behind me is where we found in some of our archaeological survey the location of what we think might be a building that dates to around the time when the Shaws were managing this property for the Middletons. And so we're really interested, as we think about looking at this property in particular, what we can learn about the parts of the property that are not well documented historically, like the daily lives of the Shaws and other enslaved people who lived here. So if you look around me today, this is an active campus. The United States Catholic bishops purchased this property in the 1880s. And this property became the Catholic University of America when it was founded in 1887. And we see that the building that stood here, the home that was known as Sydney, became a residence for priests, an order of priests called the Paulist Fathers. And so they expanded the building pretty significantly, and this was their residence and house of studies. But remains of that building are right under our feet today. There have been foundations identified originally during archaeological investigations. And we've returned to this project in the past 5 years or so. We started digging in 2022. And we use this as sort of an active laboratory for teaching archaeological methods here on campus. We're looking for things like remains of the architecture of those buildings and artifacts that people used in everyday life. Everything from pieces of pottery, like the dishes people are eating off of. From the campus period, we have fragments of a gramophone record that students probably listened to. So it's a great opportunity for us to engage with our community, to learn more about the past, and to hopefully become more engaged with Washington, D.C. and Brookland as a neighborhood.